The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I met Kirby. We started dating in 2020.
You and Kirby ended up having a child together.
I did.
Enola?
Yes, sir.
When was Enola born?
July 23rd, 2022. The plan was for when I went into labor for my parents to come from Virginia and stay with us for about a month after. I had been reading about the fourth trimester and how important that was for recovery and breastfeeding and new babies. So they offered to be there and help us through that.
The state's star witness in the plotting parents murder trial took center stage on Thursday. Caitlin Spence pointing to her father as her boyfriend's killer. So did Jeffrey Spence's daughter sink his defense? We'll talk about it. And Bryan Kohberger back in the headlines as newly released video shows him hours after the Idaho student murders, visiting multiple stores, including a Costco where he's turned away. We'll unpack his very odd behavior. Plus, we have new developments 15 years after the murder of University of Miami football player Bryan Pota. A witness who was believed to be dead now found alive ahead of the trial for Pota's accused killer. And the case for former University of Kentucky cheerleader Laken Snelling is on the docket this morning. We'll take you live inside the courtroom as soon as the judge takes the bench. And we're talking about how the autopsy of her baby could impact her upcoming trial. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Friday morning to you, my friends. Welcome to Court TV's Opening Statements with Julie Grant. We have a great show planned for you. Let's get it started. I want you to grab that cup of coffee. We're going to kick things off as we always do. It's time for my opening statement. These cowards. I swear, it is the week of cowardly defendants on Court TV. We've got Jose Soto Escalera and Brandon Isabel. And these guys have eerily similar facts in their cases. Now, with Soto Escalera, we already have a conviction and a death penalty recommendation for the murder of his mistress, Tanya Wise, and the couple's unborn baby boy, Josiah. Now, with Brandon Isabel, this guy is cloaked in the presumption of innocence, still standing trial. The case evidence, though, includes his confession to police about murdering his former girlfriend, Danielle Hoyle, and the couple's 2-day-old baby girl, Kennedy. Now, the alleged motives are that these men didn't want to own their actions and the babies that were the consequences of their actions. I tell you what, my friends, these cowards make me sick. I can't think of anything more cowardly than harming one's own child so that they don't have to care for him or for her. Real men step up and take responsibility for their children. Real men don't harm women. I agree with the verdict and the death penalty recommendation for coward Jose Soto Escalera. And I can't understand why coward Brandon Isabel isn't facing the death penalty too for what he allegedly did. Those ladies, Tanya Wise and Danielle Hoyle, should be alive today. And so should their babies, Josiah and Kennedy. Real men don't kill their girlfriends or their babies. Only rotten, disgusting cowards do. That's my opening statement on this Friday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Brandon Marshall on behalf of call number 80, Laken Snelling.
Dates are, see this, Friday the 5th, 12th, 19th, or 26th, if you want to wait time.
26th, and we will wait time, sir.
In Kentucky, we've got Laken Snelling in court this morning for a preliminary hearing. The former University of Kentucky student and stunt team member is accused of wrapping her dead baby up in a towel and leaving the child in a towel, and leaving the child in a closet. Court's going to start up at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We're monitoring that courtroom right now for you. In Tennessee, we've got the Baby in the River murder trial resuming this morning. Defendant Brandon Isabel accused of shooting his girlfriend and then tossing their 2-day-old baby into the river. Testimony in that one set to start up at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And in Mississippi, we've got the state's case continuing in the plotting parents murder trial for defendant Jeffrey Spence. This guy's accused of killing his daughter's boyfriend. Court's going to start up in that one at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And that is your top story this morning, the plotting parents murder trial. So the state called their star witness to the stand on Thursday. If you're unfamiliar with the trial, here's the defendant. This is Jeffrey Spence. This guy's accused of killing his daughter's boyfriend in 2022. Now, in a very tangled family affair, prosecutors allege that Spence plotted with his wife, Karen, and with his daughter, Caitlin, to try to rob and kill Caitlin's boyfriend, Kirby Carpenter. Now, mother and daughter, Karen and Caitlin Spence, accepted plea agreements, and it was Caitlin who took the stand on Thursday, pointing to her dad as her boyfriend's killer.
Did you subsequently learn who killed Kirby Carpenter after this time?
Yes.
And when was that? The first time you learned who killed Kirby Carpenter?
When I had the waterfall conversation with my father. Kirby would make money on anything.
I asked you if he was a drug dealer. I want a yes or a no.
Yes.
And you knew he was a drug dealer? Yes.
I did, yes.
And you actually participated in that activity, didn't you?
No, sir.
You were a drug dealer too, weren't you?
No, sir, I'm not.
Who helped you put Kirby's body where Kirby's body was, quote, found?
Can you say that again, sir? I did not hear you.
Helped you put Kirby's body where Kirby was, quote, found?
I did not move Kirby's body from where I found it.
Did either one of them have a key to your home?
No, sir.
Did any one of them admit to killing Kirby?
Not that I know of, sir, no.
Who did?
My father.
What'd you think of Caitlin Spence? Let's talk about it. I have two great guests. I want to bring them in now. Attorneys Joe Tamburino and Ben Chu on the program this morning. Good Friday morning to you, gentlemen. All right, so big question. How much did Caitlin really know about this plot to kill her boyfriend, Kirby? Joe, what do you think?
Thanks for having me on, Julie. It doesn't seem like she knew much. I mean, what's great about this trial in terms of evidence is this is now pure impeachment and credibility. You've got a daughter testifying against the father, and there's a lot of impeachment, meaning to challenge her credibility. She got a deal where she's not going to be sentenced till after this trial is over, which could, release her from jail. She never came forward for a couple of years. All that is used to attack her credibility. On the other hand, she came across pretty well, and she said, look, basically I thought after he did this, he would confess. He didn't, and then things happened, but she's not the killer. So it's really a good juxtaposition of credibility of her and then impeachment, things to attack her credibility.
I'm so glad you brought up credibility, Joe. Ben Chu, I want to ask you about that. Caitlin's believability, her likability, the things that jurors are going to be looking for. Give us your assessment of her, please.
Hello, Julie. Nice to be with you again. I agree with the second part of Joe's analysis. I think she came across as extremely credible, and her story of being fearful of her father, that is the explanation for waiting so long to come forward, makes a lot of common sense. So I think the jury is going to empathize with that and understand that this family dynamic is beyond redemption. And I think she came across very well.
Well said, Ben, about the family dynamics. My gosh. So At the end of the day with Caitlin, I think a lot of people are wondering, was her testimony enough to be the nail in the coffin, so to speak, to convict her father? Joe, what do you say to that?
Yes, I think it would be. I think she came across very well. The defense made some good points about, again, her impeachment, attacking her credibility, as well as they brought up things like, well, her dad, Jeffrey, he was in Virginia. It's a long way to travel, 800 miles or so within a couple of days. So they made some good points. However, a jury could easily say, look, yes, Caitlin's got her hands dirty. There's no doubt about that. But we believe her in this respect. I mean, let's think of a lot of organized crime trials. You might have someone whose hands are completely dirty, but he's cooperating and he's on the stand and he says, yes, I'm guilty of some things and I'm culpable, but so are they.
I appreciate it, Joe. Ben, I want to ask you about how the state struck up deals with mom and daughter here. In order to get dad. It seems that dad was the big fish, so to speak, the one with the most culpability, allegedly, in this. And so they're using mom and daughter to get to him. Your thoughts on whether these two are deserving of deals, especially Caitlin, because of her close proximity. And there's the argument, we heard defense counsel talking about her alleged involvement in drug dealing. We know he made that accusation on cross, and that she was aware of the amounts of money that this guy would have like $200,000, $300,000 on him at one point in time on his body. I mean, who does that? Curious what you think about the wheeling and dealing, Ben, if it was appropriate here.
Well, Julie, as you and Joe know, that kind of wheeling and dealing, those kind of deals with those who are arguably less culpable is very typical, and it's necessary to make sure that they can get a conviction of Jeffrey Spence, in this case, the person most culpable. And as Joe said, there are always going to be some messy facts. And as long as the witness, in this case, the daughter, owns it and takes responsibility for that, I think her credibility is going to be fine. So I don't have any problem with the deal here. But justice will be done, at least to some extent.
Yes, great points from you both. I could talk to you two all day. Well, guess what? You're going to be sticking around for the next segment. Ben Chu, Joe Tamburino, stand by, please. We're going to hit our first break of the hour. Friends at home, go get some more coffee. Here's what's coming up on opening statements. We're going to show you some newly released video of killer Bryan Kohberger. So this is him trying to walk into a Costco just hours after he murdered those 4 University of Idaho students. We'll unpack his odd behavior next. And over nearly 20 years after the death of University of Miami football player Bryan Pota, someone is set to stand trial. But now, because of a surprise witness, the case has been delayed. We're going to talk about it all next.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And Mr. Kohberger, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence?
Yes.
Let's talk about what's trending in true crime, shall we? There is brand new video footage of Bryan Kohberger's movements just hours after he murdered those 4 University of Idaho students. He's seen on security video trying to gain access to a Costco store. Look at this, but he's refused entry because he's not a member. Now, this is in Clarkston, Washington, which is about 20 miles from Moscow, Idaho, where the murders happened. Kohberger, if you notice here, keeps his left hand inside of his left pocket, presumably because that's the hand that was injured during the homicides. These people have no idea who just walked into their store, right? I mean, think about how everything would come out later. You see him leave there. Now, investigative podcaster Gray Hughes obtained this video, and let's take a listen to Gray describing how Kohberger ends up leaving the parking lot.
So here comes the Elantra. I didn't think that was it, that first one. And here it is. And the car does the same thing as that other vehicle, but here is the Elantra, and it pulls up to the road, and then after this is going to be heading towards the Kate's Cup of Joe.
Now let's talk about this with high-profile attorney Ben Chu and Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of applied forensics at Jacksonville State University. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Wow, you would have no idea this guy just murdered 4 people before he goes shopping. I mean, it's just so chilling. Professor Joe, thoughts on that moment where we saw him walk into that Costco so casually after doing now what we know he did?
I think that, Julie, by the way, thanks for having me. I think that it's not so much that he walked in, it's that he walked in without understanding the principle of going into one of these club stores like this. He was rejected from entering. He has little self-awareness, apparently, because I'm assuming he's not a member. He doesn't present with an ID or anything like that. So out the door he goes. Could he have been in a frenzy at this particular time, looking for cleaning supplies or looking for things that would aid him along the way to dispose of any kind of physical evidence that he may have had on his person, may have had on any of those clothing? We don't know still, really what happened to any of that, and the weapon as well. This is a very critical time in the investigation when you're looking back at this. It's fascinating that Gray recovered this, and kudos to him, because it really paints a picture of how sinister this is.
It is sinister indeed, Professor. Great thoughts there on whether he might have been looking for cleaning supplies or something. It is very bizarre. I have another clip from Gray Hughes' podcast, and he talks about how apparently Kohberger's next stop was to a coffee shop, but apparently the shop might have been closed because he never winds up there. Let's take a listen.
But here comes Kohberger's white Elantra, driving right by Kate's Cup of Joe. And this is where it does its U-turn. This is exactly how I drove it when I went there. I might have driven, I think the second time I went there, I drove to the left because I didn't want to drive through the Kate's Cup of Joe driveway. It seems kind of weird to go through there and not order something. And there he is. That is Kohberger right there.
Ben Chu, want to get your reaction, please. You've seen a lot over the years throughout your career. This guy, what do you make of him, Kohberger? What exactly do you think we're dealing with this guy?
Well, the fact that despite whatever internal chaos was going on in his twisted sociopathic mind, I was struck by how calm he appeared to be on the outside when he was rejected, as Professor Joe said, at the door. He didn't seem particularly agitated, and then he took a big swig from his water. It just seemed remarkable how casual to the observer he appeared to be. And when he drove, he wasn't speeding, he wasn't running red lights. He just seemed to be totally in control, when we know that he really wasn't.
Yes, so well said, Ben. It's like, how can someone be that calm and collected after doing what he did? He goes on, Professor Joe, to a grocery store called Albertson's Groceries, where apparently he buys something. Here's the video of it. You see him walk in. A few minutes after he walks in, he's at a self-checkout. He pays for what he buys, and then he moseys on out of the store. Not a big shopping trip, might have only picked up a couple of little things. Podcaster Gray Hughes thinks that maybe it was a coffee that he buys here. We're not sure. It's hard to tell from the video, but we know since he didn't get it in the last stop. Professor Joe, does it surprise you that somebody who we know acted like a maniac in murdering those 4 people can then behave like a normal person like this and go about his day like everything's just fine?
Unfortunately, Julie, I can no longer say I'm surprised by, just the depth of evil that we see, this detachment that you're seeing with him being able to just kind of float among us as though that, it's just another day in the park. I want to point out something here that I kind of found, that I just picked up on, that I found very interesting. That shirt that he is wearing is covering another shirt. You can actually see it in the Costco loop. He's dressed all in black there. And there's even, if you look at the backside, yeah, that's flared out there. It looks like he's thrown whatever that is, a shirt that he's oddly wearing. Is he wearing something else beneath that? And
wow,
if it's a button-up shirt, why is he wearing it buttoned up all the way to the collar, to that top button? It's an odd way of dressing, just when you take a look at him. And look, it's possible to read a lot of things into these things that we see because we want the knowledge. We want to try to understand, these events, and certainly the subsequent events. We had indications that the subject had actually driven back by. Do you remember that, Julie? Driven back by that morning afterwards. And is this nervous energy he's just trying to burn off? I don't know. It is an odd bit of video, though, I have to say.
Definitely. Thank you for pointing that out, Professor, about the shirt underneath. I'm thinking it was just a pants pocket, but when I look at it more closely, after you mention it, it does look like maybe a black T-shirt or some kind of shirt was sticking out underneath that light green, it looks like, dress shirt.
Yeah, it does. It's just kind of bizarre, and particularly the way he's wearing the shirt. Buttoned all the way up to the top. This is something you'd normally have tucked in. Is he covering anything beneath that? I don't know. Points to ponder, certainly, and very interesting. Maybe I'd like to know, can they correlate anything he picked up in Albertsons with any of these receipts that they recovered? I'd like to hear about that. Was there anything that would have been specifically purchased at Albertsons that they later found in there? And of course, that doesn't tell a tale without a receipt, a time-stamped receipt, because Albertsons might be the only grocery store that's adjacent to him, that he has access to. Everybody might use it.
Sure.
I don't know. Kind of fascinating, though, Julie.
Yeah, it is. Great questions you're raising. I will continue talking about this case, of course. We're remembering those victims. And Ben Chu, one last legal question for you, please. When we think about Kohberger, we know he was a weird guy. And at school, he made people uncomfortable, complaints about him from students he was teaching. But it doesn't seem that anything ever rose to the level for something to legally be done to him, for him to be legally removed. I'm sure you probably get that question a lot when people talk to you about this case. Would you just say this is one of those things that unfortunately couldn't have been prevented?
Yeah, Julie, I'm afraid that's right. I mean, we value in this country our freedoms, and there's a big strain of libertarianism, and we don't like Big Brother interfering in our lives. So this, unfortunately, is the cost. Unless there's a real criminal act, these things go undetected and unprosecuted.
Right. He seems so normal. We thought he was going to be in academia, like Professor Joe. We thought he was going to be a teacher and a professor someday, and but no, sir. He is a jailbird forever, and he's lucky he didn't get the death penalty. Great conversation with you both. Attorney Ben Chu, Professor Joseph Scott Morgan, thank you so much for the great insight. We'll see you soon. Still ahead here on Opening Statements, 15 years after the shooting death of a University of Miami football player, his former teammate is arrested and set to go to trial. But then there's a sudden delay when a witness thought to be deceased is discovered by ESPN. We've got a former NFL star quarterback on the program next to help us unpack this case. Plus,
good afternoon, Your Honor. Brandon Marshall on behalf of call number 80, Laken Snelling.
Dates are, see this, Friday the 5th, 12th, 19th, or 26th, you want to wait time?
26th, and we will wait time, sir.
we got the case of former University of Kentucky stunt team member Laken Snelling on the docket today. She's set to be in court in just about 20 minutes from now, and we still don't have the final autopsy report on her baby. We'll talk about how it may tip the scales.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Our spotlight today is on the case centered around the death of college football player Bryan Pota. Now, a witness who was believed to be dead in the case has now been found alive ahead of the trial for Pota's accused killer. So in 2006, we're going all the way back then, Bryan Pota was a star player on the University of Miami's football team. The Hurricanes were 5 years removed from a national championship at the time, and they were prominent title contenders as well. But then in November, Bryan Pota was found shot in the back of the head outside of his apartment. 15 years after his death, this man was arrested, Rashawn Jones. And what's more, he was a teammate of Pota's at the University of Miami. Now, the case was heading for trial in just a couple of days, but then it was discovered that an eyewitness to the shooting who was thought to be dead was found alive by an ESPN reporter. So now the trial has been continued to early next year.
From the state's perspective, we are ready, and Sergeant Cremasini has been on the list, and he was made available for quite some time, and they just chose to wait to depose him at this point.
Your Honor, if I may, first of all, that is absolutely incorrect. We have been in touch with our expert, Mr. Sawicki. However, when we took the deposition of Sergeant Cremasini had information that had not been turned over to the defense. It was not turned over to the defense until yesterday morning. That information has to be analyzed. And after it was being analyzed, it came to our attention that a Dahlberg motion needed to be filed.
The reality is, once again, I'm in the same situation as the last time. I'm ready, but I'm not, because I need to do more things. So my concern is that today is sounding, like I've said before, the only thing I want is I am ready or I am not ready. I don't want an I'm ready, but XYZ, or, something of that nature, because that's not what sounding is.
All right, you heard the judge there. So now the trial's been delayed till early next year, February 9th of 2026 to be exact. Let's talk about this case. I've got two outstanding guests on the program this morning to help me do it. I want to welcome them in now. I have the former state attorney in Palm Beach County, Florida, Dave Ehrenberg, with us, and former NFL quarterback Charlie Batch. Good morning to you both. Nice to see you. Charlie, I want to start with you, please. Let's start with a focus on the victim, a focus on Bryan Pota. I really want to tap into your sports expertise here. Tell us who he was and what kind of promise you think he had.
Yeah, talking to NFL scouts that was in the league at that time, they said he had potential as a former defensive lineman. And when you go from your junior year to your senior year, you get it graded and evaluated. And once you get that grade, now that can change depending on the type of season that you had in the fall. And those are type of things that we just don't know up until this point. All you can hope for as a player is the dream and the opportunity, and that opportunity was lost with this tragic incident.
Yeah, it really was, Charlie, just awful. Dave, I know being someone who's been a longtime resident of South Florida and somebody who roots for the Hurricanes, certainly, I know you remember this time. Tell me, do you remember back when this case first broke?
Yes, Julie, good to be on with you and with the great Charlie Batch. I've been a fan of yours, Charlie, so it's really cool to be on with you. So, yeah, as far as Bryan Pota, everyone loved him. He was someone, when this happened, it was such a tragedy to hit the Yu family, and it was compounded by the fact that they couldn't catch the killer until years later. I mean, this was a mystery. And then finally, years and years later, they finally made an arrest, and now more and more delays. I mean, because of COVID, and now because of this bizarre issue involving a key witness who saw the killer run away and then identified that person twice in two different lineups, and then apparently was thought to be dead. Now, the prosecutor's office, by the way, said that they never said in court that the witness was dead, but yet the judge is always going to err on the side of the defendant to give the defendant more time to protect his right to a fair trial.
Appreciate it, Dave. I've got more legal questions for you. Charlie, what do you think if Bryan Pota would have been able to continue his college career with hopes of playing beyond that, probably aspirations of going to the NFL, what do you think his chances would have been?
It's tough to say at this point because we don't know, the type of season that he would have had, and then ultimately going to the NFL Combine in Indianapolis and bettering your times and your results to maybe hopefully get it drafted a little bit higher and ultimately making more money in that particular perspective. So these are things that we just ultimately don't know. But regardless, if he was not a first-round pick, he could have been an undrafted guy, go on, make the team, and I've seen many players that have went on and had long careers as undrafted guys. So you just don't know kind of how your career is ultimately going to play out, and those are things that, again, we just won't know. But based off what I was seeing prior to, he had the opportunity.
Yeah, appreciate it, Charlie. Dave, could we talk a little bit about how wild it is, or at least it is to me, that ESPN found the witness, this witness that the prosecutors believed was unavailable or maybe even deceased, and for that reason unavailable. Bottom line, they couldn't find him, and this case has been going on for years. Since 2021, Rashawn Jones has had this case pending. What are your thoughts on the fact that ESPN found this witness? Do you think these prosecutors should have found him?
Well, I can imagine the internal conversations within the state attorney's office, Julie, where they must have been just furious at saying what went on. I mean, I can just imagine them trying to figure out how this could happen, especially in such a high-profile case. Now, they went to court, and they said in front of the judge that a review of hearing transcripts would indicate that prosecutors did not tell the court that Mr. Connor was dead. And by the way, I misspoke. I said that was in front of the court. That was in front of the Miami Herald, they said. So they are now saying that you will see we did not officially tell the court that this key witness was dead, but they clearly thought the witness was unavailable. So either way, it was a mistake, and I'm sure that there is going to be a head that will roll because of this. And by the way, the testimony of this individual was preserved. This was during COVID because the individual's age, his health issues, they did get the testimony preserved in a recording just in case he was unavailable.
Which is great. The witness is 81 years old now, so thankfully they have the preservation, as you noted, Dave. And Dave, I'm curious, a follow-up for you. If for some reason the jury couldn't rely on this witness's testimony, I wonder if they have enough other evidence. I was trying to do some research. I could see some things that police noted that when they checked Rashawn Jones' cell phone records, that they contradicted where he actually was when he told them where he was at the time of the homicide, which happened right after a football practice. And apparently police also, according to ESPN, said that Rashawn Jones was trying to borrow some money to leave the area after the homicide. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, and the prosecutors have approximately 4 witnesses they're going to call. So this one witness is important, but it's not the only witness. And then there's evidence that the defendant had threatened Bryan Pota before, and Bryan Pota knew of it and spoke about it to someone. So this was not just random out of the blue. These two had beef for a while, and the victim was threatened allegedly by this defendant. And so I do think they have a legitimate case, but with any case that takes so long over so many years, witnesses die, memory fades, evidence spoils, so it gets tougher by the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely, Dave. You know, and of course, these are allegations. Rashawn Jones is cloaked in the presumption of innocence. But just for the sake of our analysis, if we are to believe the state's allegations is true, that we have a teammate murdering another teammate after a practice, you know, following him, shooting him in the back of the head when he is unsuspecting and unaware. I mean, it's just, it's chilling. Charlie, I keep thinking about how a lot of the work you do, and perhaps, you know, our audience who's watching nationally and internationally may not even know this about you. After retiring from the NFL, you started a foundation to mentor young people, and you're doing up through college, the Best of the Batch Foundation. I'm just curious if this case kind of makes you think about how important those conversations are early on in keeping young people on the right track.
Yeah, we talk about these things all the time. And like you mentioned, Julie, you've been a great supporter of Best of the Batch Foundation over the years, so we truly appreciate you for that. But we are an educational foundation, and we service over 4,000 kids annually in 9 counties throughout southwestern PA. And one of the things that we starting to see right now is you having, kids that are walking into the building, and they are normalizing death. And when you have a middle schooler that's saying to another middle schooler, hey, sorry about your loss, let me know if you need anything, without any emotions attached to it, this lets you know that these things that they're seeing is far too common in this particular case. So when we work with all the kids within our foundation, we make sure we have some of these tough conversations, because in school they avoid those, but ultimately we're living in the real life, and we want to make sure that we can be a grieving center, making sure that we can get past those things. And when I see stories like this, it reminds me of my sister losing her back in 1996, and that was the inspiration of why the foundation was created. So it's one of those things that we never want another family to feel the way that we did, but ultimately, how can we help the next family moving forward? And I think the shocking thing about this case is the fact that these two were teammates. And when you're talking about going on the field, trying to get a win together, but ultimately now both have lost in this situation.
Oh, Charlie, we're so sorry for your loss of your sister, and wow, how you're carried on her legacy so beautifully. Batchfoundation.org for anybody who wants to check out the great work you're doing. You're right, we can't get desensitized to this, especially our young people. They can't think that murders are normal and that this kind of thing is appropriate. Thank you both so much. Charlie Batch, Dave Ehrenberg, great conversation. Again, next February, Court TV is tracking this trial. We will be there in the case over the murder of Bryan Pota. Still ahead here on Opening Statements. We've got the former University of Kentucky cheerleader Laken Snelling going before a judge any minute now. Could the autopsy of her dead infant break the case?
This is the Court TV podcast.
Laken Snelling appearing in court just moments ago. The University of Kentucky cheerleader is facing criminal charges after police found a newborn baby deceased inside of the closet of her home. Let's go into the courtroom now.
Ms. Snelling, you just heard your attorney state that it's your desire to waive this matter to the Fayette County Grand Jury. You understood you got a right to have a preliminary hearing this morning, but it is your desire to waive this matter at this time? Yes. Okay. I know that you have posted in electronic monitoring, residing with parents, all of that's still in place, correct? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Snelling was arrested last month and is charged with abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. The infant was discovered after someone called 911 to report an unresponsive child. The baby was found wrapped in a towel. Snelling is out on bond, as you can see. She's on house arrest. What she did in that hearing was she waived her right to have a preliminary hearing, and that is where the state would put on witnesses and evidence to get the case from magistrate court to the higher court, the big court, the common pleas court, where the trials happen. So she waived that right. So essentially she's saying, just send the case on up. I'm not going to contest things right now. I'm still maintaining my innocence. Just don't want to have a hearing today. Now, we're still waiting for the final autopsy report on her infant. Let's talk about how they may tip the scales of justice in her case, depending upon what the autopsy shows. The first reports were inconclusive. So what are we going to find out next? And should she have been stunting while she was visibly pregnant? We're going to talk about that as well. Let's bring in our guest. Still with me, attorney Joe Tamburino. I want to welcome in our medical expert, Cleveland Clinic trained sports medicine expert, and Professor Dr. Jason Smith on the show with us. Good to see you both. Dr. Smith, I want to start with you, please. So much talk about Laken Snelling stunting while pregnant. There's an incredible video I would love for you to take a look at now where she is catching. Look at her. She caught the other stunt member. You can see she looks to be pregnant at this time, and her teammate's head seems to be right on top of her baby bump. I'm astounded that she was allowed to do this. I'm curious if you are too.
Yeah, absolutely, Julie. As a college team physician, this is concerning at a minimum. And it's concerning because it puts her safety at risk and also the baby's safety at risk.
Yeah, most definitely. And Dr. Jason, I just have to think that, didn't somebody think something? You know, the team doctor, teammates, the coach, didn't somebody think, wow, this is so physical with catching and, I mean, being caught. And I mean, it makes me just chills all over my body when I see this video. And I have to wonder, the safety of the baby. I wonder, could we have had a stillbirth here because of an accident through this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, particularly with her prenatal care going into the pregnancy and through the pregnancy, a little bit of timing as well. Stunt is a emerging NCAA sport. This is a full varsity sport at the University of Kentucky, meaning that she had a litany of resources from a medical standpoint, from a psychosocial standpoint, from an academic support standpoint. In addition to that, pregnancy is considered a Title IX protected event, meaning that, you know, if she announced her pregnancy and presented a medical note, or the medical team evaluated her to be pregnant, she could actually get an additional year of eligibility and continue a scholarship if she did have a scholarship to continue stunt for an extra year with this pregnancy.
Well, really helpful information. Dr. J, thank you for that. Joe Tamburino, legally, let's talk about this woman's problems here. So right now, we don't have murder charges. Want to be very clear. If we do have a stillbirth, I'm curious what the likelihood may be of murder charges for her. Your thoughts on that?
Well, thanks for having me on, Julie. This is an extremely serious case, and we see this sometimes throughout the country where you have very young women who are pregnant, and unfortunately, when they give birth, the baby is either stillborn or discarded. It's a very, very sad case. However, I'm not a forensic pathologist or a medical examiner or anything like that, but we know thus far that, at least with the medical examiner, it's inconclusive. This baby very well could have been born stillborn. And if that is the case, no, of course not. There shouldn't be any type of murder charges. And think of it this way. Even if there is maybe some conjecture or speculation that the baby was born alive, I don't know if that's enough to get you over the hump in a criminal trial to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there was murder. I mean, it seems to me that so far the medical evidence is going to show that the baby was stillborn. I think that evidence would be buttressed by the fact of all this strenuous physical activity that this young woman was doing right before birth. And if that's the case, if there is no murder, I think this case is going to be resolved.
I really appreciate that. You know, and Dr. Jason said something makes me think about the prenatal care. You said you were interested to see about her care. Do you mean because that would indicate to you whether she was looking forward to having this baby or not?
Yeah, I think there would be some premeditation. And then if the doctor who was providing her pre-medical care knew, you know, there's a bit of a responsibility for Laken and that physician to share that information with the University of Kentucky so they can protect the athlete as well. So I think there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, because as a college team physician, our job is to protect our student athletes. And, you know, what the university knew regarding Laken's health at the time, I think will be very important in the case going forward to determine if the university has any role in this terrible incident.
Yeah, most definitely. You're right. This conversation is not over. Dr. Jason Smith, attorney Joe Tamburino, great having you both weigh in. We'll keep following it. She's got another court date now that the case is officially in common pleas court. Thank you both. That's it for opening statements, friends. If you like the episode, watch it again. Share it with your friends. We're here every weekday morning at 8 o'clock to get you ready for the court day.
That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.